Here are some simple language games to play with your students. The first one is passwords. So this is a nice way to review vocabulary. So on sheets of paper, I would write the target vocabulary words, 1 word per piece of paper. Then I would divide students into teams, maybe 2 teams works well, and then I would have a chair facing outwards to the team. And then one student from the first team would come up and would sit in the chair. I would stand behind them so they can't see, and I would hold up a piece of paper, so maybe tiger. Then their teammates would be describing what the word is without actually saying the word. So they could say, it's an orange and black animal, and then that person sitting in the chair would say tiger. So you can do it either 2 ways. So you can give kind of 1 minute and they can try to get as many words as possible within that 1 minute, or you can time how long each word takes. So it kind of just depends on how big your class is. I prefer each student doing only 1 word if you have a very big class, but if you have a smaller class, then each student can even do 1 or 2 minutes in the chair. So then the other team goes, and then you can add up the points at the end, and that is the winner. All right, the next simple games to play in English class are charades and Pictionary. So these are very similar to charades is acting, Pictionary is drawing. So you have a bunch of key words or sentences, whatever your vocabulary words are. Put students into 2 teams, and then the person has to take one of the words and they can draw or act it out, and their teammates have to guess what it is. So I like to do a few different rounds of, say, like 1 minute, and then we add up the points at the end. All right, the next simple game to play in English is Taboo. So maybe you played this with your friends before, so you can actually buy the board game if you want to play like kind of with higher level students, or you can make your own if you have lower level students. So there's a target word, and then there's other words that you can't use to describe it. So it can be a little bit tricky. So for example, like maybe if coffee is your target word, and then the words you can't use to describe it would be like steaming, morning, and caffeine. So you're not allowed to say those words. You have to like kind of time maybe like 1 minute, and then if students can describe the word coffee without saying those 3 words, and their teammates guess what it is, they would get 1 point. So you can play a bunch of different rounds and then see who the winner is at the end. All right, the fourth simple game to play in class is a whiteboard race. So I don't know, whatever it is, students love to write on the whiteboard. So I get teams, I divide the class up into teams, so the more the better, but it depends on how much whiteboard space you have. So maybe if there's like quite a big whiteboard, you could divide the class into 4 teams, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and get them to line up behind each person, so 4 lines at the whiteboard, and the first person takes a pen or a whiteboard marker. And then I would give some hints. So there's various ways you can do this. You could say a question, and then students have to write the answer. So for example, how old are you? They'd have to write, I am 12 years old, something like that. So they'd have to write a complete sentence, or I am 12. Or you could say the answer, I'm 24 years old. Students would have to write, how old are you? Or you could even describe, it's a black and orange animal, and students would have to write tiger. So whatever it is, there's various ways and kind of depends on the level of students. But the first person to write the correct thing gets 1 point. Then they go to the back of the line, and then all the other people have a chance. All right, the next one is A to Z. So this is a very quick warm-up game, or you can use it as a review game. So I would get students into groups of, say, like 3 or 4, and they could write the alphabet on a piece of paper from top to bottom, A, B, C, D, all the way down to Z. Then I give them a theme. So for example, animals. And then I'd give students maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and they have to write as many animals that start with each letter as they can remember. So for example, ant, bat, cat, donkey, monkey, tiger, zebra, etc. They don't have to write, they can kind of skip letters if they can't remember something. And I generally will do only 1 animal per letter. So once they say ant, A is finished, and they can skip down to the other ones. At the end of the 1 or 2 minutes, they can add up how many they have, and then the winner has the most animals. All right, the last simple game you can do in English class is flashcard games. So I love to bring flashcards into my class with young learners. It's just kind of a nice way to review things or to play simple games, whatever the case may be. So one simple thing I like to do is to kind of to throw the flashcards on a table and then face up, and then students they could each grab 1 card, and then they could make a sentence. So if they grabbed apple, they could say, I like apples. And then they get to keep that card and they have 1 point. The next student can go and they could say, oh, I don't like cucumbers, something like that. And they get to keep that card and get 1 point. Another thing you could do is put the cards around the classroom and then show students where they are. So you could put them in kind of sneaky places. You could maybe put the apple card behind the behind a book, or maybe you could put like the orange card underneath the Kleenex box, and then you could ask students questions. Where's the apple? Where's the orange? And they could say the orange is under the Kleenex box, so the apple is behind the book, something like that. Okay, so those are it for my simple ESL games. Pictionary is one of my favorite ESL or EFL review activities. I'm sure you've played the game before. It's when you draw a sentence or a phrase, and then you have to draw it on a board, and then your teammates have to guess what it is. It also makes a great ESL review activity. So I put in a little bag or a box all the words or the phrases that I want to review in my class, and then I put students into two teams. Someone from that first team comes up, picks a word out of the box, and then draws it on the board, and their team has to guess what it is in English, of course. I don't allow them to use their first language if they have a common first language. And then I usually will give them a time limit. So I'll say like a minute for each round. So once they get that first word, they can draw another word out of the box and try to get as many points as possible in that first round, or that 1 minute. Then the other team goes for 1 minute, and then you can play as many rounds as you wish. I'm going to share with you one of my favorite ESL activities for kids. It's called Mystery Box. In this activity, you can get a box or you can get a bag as well and put a bunch of like little random objects in it. Maybe like an eraser, a key, a coin, just little small things that are kind of different from each other. One student can come up and they can reach their hand into the box. The key is that they can't see what's in the box. They can only feel what's in the box. So you might have to put a piece of paper, a little piece of cloth or something on the top, or a plastic bag on top. And they can feel something with their fingers, and they can describe the shape, the size, the texture, and they can make a guess about what it is. So you can do this, like everyone can have a chance to put their hand in and touch something or take something out. You can do it all in one class, or you can have maybe like 1 or 2 students at the beginning of a class do it as kind of a nice warm-up activity. All right, so that is it. It is a very simple activity to try out with kids. Today I'm going to talk about a very quick ESL warm-up that requires almost nothing in the way of preparation or materials. It also can be easily adapted to make it as easy or as difficult as you want, depending on the level of students. It's called Name 5 Things. So put students into pairs or groups of even 3 or 4, and then each group needs a piece of paper and a pen. And then you could say, name 5 animals. And then the first team to quickly write down 5 animals puts up their hand, and you can check, and that team gets a point. So that is a very simple one. Kind of a little bit more difficult would be name 5 farm animals. And the next level would be name 5 animals that are bigger than a car. So just as hard or as easy as you want to make it. There's also some other variations or some other options that you can do, and you can get creative, but here are just a few more ideas for you. So name 5 foods, or name 5 red foods, name 5 Christmas foods, something like that. Or name 5 drinks, name 5 cold drinks, name 5 drinks that you might get at a bar, something like that. So the sky's the limit. Get creative and use your imagination. And you can even get students to help you come up with ideas for this game. Here are my top 10 writing prompts for beginners. The first one is your favorite holiday. So you can talk about what was your best vacation or holiday that you've been on. The second prompt is talking about your best friend. So you can describe them, what they're like, what their hobbies are, their family, that kind of thing. The third writing prompt for beginners is what you would do if you won the lotto. If you won $1 million, how would you spend it? The fourth one is, what is your favorite movie, TV show, or book? You can describe it briefly and then talk about why you like it so much. The next writing prompt is seasons. What is your favorite season and why? What is your least favorite season and why? The sixth writing prompt is, what is your perfect day? So describe when you wake up, what you would eat, who you'd be hanging out with, what you would be doing, and then just go until the evening. The next writing prompt is talk about your family. So describe the people in your family, what they like to do, what they look like, that kind of thing. The next writing prompt is your daily routine. So start with when you wake up, what do you do? Then what do you do next? What do you do until lunchtime? What do you do in the afternoon? And what do you do in the evening before bed? The next writing prompt is talking about your favorite food or your favorite restaurant, and you can talk about why you like it so much. You could also talk about what kinds of food you don't like. The final writing prompt for beginners is your dream job. So if you're working at your dream job right now, you could talk about that. If you're not, you could talk about what your dream job is. Hey everybody, this is Jackie from ESLspeaking.org. So today I'm going to share a quick activity called 5 senses. It's great for just teaching English learners. You can use it as a quick warm-up or kind of a time filler. There's a ton of different ways to use this activity. You just have to bring an object into the class, and I'll use the example of a can of Coke. And then students have to think about their 5 senses and then use words to describe that object. So I usually will put students into like pairs or groups of 3 or 4. And they can do this either by speaking or by writing. It's up to you. It doesn't matter for this activity. So for example, I'm kind of doing this on the fly, so like, be kind. So anyway, the can of Coke. Sight or seeing. If you look at the can, you could use colors to describe it, like red, white. The writing on it, you could describe that. You could say it's like a cylinder or like a tube. It's like, it looks metallic on the top. Any of those words, so just kind of descriptive words to describe it. The smell, you could say it smells kind of like sweet or licoricey, or I don't know, I feel like it tastes or smells like a little bit like metallic or something because of the can, so when you first put it to your mouth, so any of those words. It tastes, I don't know, I don't like Coke that much, so I think it tastes like bitter and like kind of harsh. Some people think it tastes sweet, some people think it tastes delicious, I don't know, there's a million words you could use to describe how Coke tastes, or like fizzy. Fizzy, I guess, is another good word. And then touch. Touch is interesting. You could say like it's liquidy, or it's like fizzy or bubbly, or yeah, so there's lots of words for that. Hearing, the last sense. So you could say like when you open the can, like the pop, or like a pop or snap, or like something like that. Then when all the fizz comes out, it's kind of just like a rush of air, or like bubbly sound or something like that. So you can do this with any object. And of course, not all the things might apply. So if you don't do a food or drink, obviously taste is kind of a weird one, because like who's gonna lick an eraser or like taste an eraser or a pencil or whatever. So you could just say like, turn it into like the 4 senses activity instead of the 5 senses or whatever, you know? Okay, so that's just a simple activity as a time filler or warm up. Try it out with your students and I think you'll like it. I always have a really good time. Okay, I'm going to talk about lineup. It's one of my favorite, very simple ESL activities that's ideal for kind of a time filler or just like a party day, or as an icebreaker as well. So the way it works is that students have to line up in order in a line according to a certain criteria. So it could be their age, their birthday date in the year, like May 15th or June 20th, whatever. It could be their height, it could be their number of people that live in their house together. The key is you can do it 2 different ways. So the first way is that students have to do it without talking. So they just have to use their hands or body language. And the second way is that I require my students do it, but they only can speak English. So it really is up to you what you want to do. But then at the end, you can check the answers. So especially if they've done it silently, you could say, when's your birthday? Oh, January 3rd, February 2nd, March 4th, and just make sure students are in the correct order. Okay, so that is a very simple ESL activity you could do. Here is a very simple ESL grammar activity that makes a really nice review or exam exercise. It's called mixed up sentences. So in this, just get some complete sentences that have the target grammar in them, and then mix them up in terms of word order. Students have to unscramble them and make a sentence. So the way that I do it, just to kind of create a bit more fun in my class, is I put students into pairs and then I give them a worksheet with maybe like 5 or 6 mixed up sentences, and they have to race other teams to be the first one to make the complete sentences. So that's it. It's a really nice activity. Just for review, or if you want to like focus on things that are a little bit tricky in terms of grammar. Some things like conditionals, for example, have a lot of little words in them and you have to get the order correct. Okay, so that's it for mixed up sentences. So one of my favorite review activities that's very simple and requires nothing in the way of preparation for materials that I like to use for my English learners is that sentence correct? It's the ultimate time filler, review activity, homework thing, something that you can put on your exam. So basically you just write up a bunch of sentences. Some of them will be correct, some of them won't be correct. In pairs, students have to look at the sentence and they decide if it's correct, they do nothing. They just put a check mark. If it's incorrect, they put an X and then they have to make the required changes. That's it. Super simple. Hi, this is Jackie. Today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite ESL icebreaker activities. It's the toilet paper icebreaker. So bring in a roll of toilet paper, or you can also bring in some candies. And just for sanitation purposes, I prefer wrapped candies as opposed to just like random loose jelly beans or whatever. Anyway, bring those in and then kind of just make it like a little bit suspicious. So students are kind of like, what's with the toilet paper? What's with the candies? But don't tell them any information. Just tell students that they need to take, say, between 4 and 7 pieces of toilet paper or candies, or if you have like a small class, you could even do more, say like between 6 and 10 pieces of these things. And then put students into small groups if you have a big class. So I find that groups of maybe like 6 people work quite well. If you have a class, say, of like up to 10 students, then no problem. You could just do this all together. So the way it works is that students will go like sit in a circle, and the first student will take a piece of their toilet paper or a candy and put it into the middle. And then they will say one fact about themselves. So for example, I have a brother, or my hometown is Edmonton, or my favorite hobby is soccer, something like that. And then one other student in that group, whoever is fastest, they can ask a follow-up question. So for example, if I said my favorite hobby is soccer, someone else in the group might take their piece of paper, put it down quickly, and say, how often do you play? And then they get to do that. So when each person is out of papers, out of the squares of toilet paper or out of candies, they are out of the round. So I like to do the follow-up questions because it gives students an incentive to actually listen. And if they ask good follow-up questions, they don't actually have to say that many things about themselves, which some students are kind of invested in doing, and they'd rather just ask questions about other people instead of just sharing facts about themselves. So that is my toilet paper icebreaker. It's very simple. It requires no preparation. And yeah, very few materials because you can just grab a roll of toilet paper out of the bathroom at your school, most likely. Here are my top 10 ESL teaching topics for kids. Number 1 is daily routines. The second one is animals and pets. Number 3 is holidays like Christmas, Easter, or Halloween. Number 4 is seasons and weather. The fifth one is school life. Number 6 is food and restaurants. The seventh topic is family. Number 8 is what happens in cities. So for example, adjectives to describe buildings and kind of some verbs that people would use if they're going places in a city. Number 9 is transportation. And the 10th topic for kids is the home. So rooms in a home and what happens in each room. All right, so for some ideas for teaching ESL to kids, please be sure to check out my book, 101 ESL Activities for Kids. I'll put the link up there. Also, please hit like, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.